Hey guys, this is Lucas with Better Coding Academy. Now in this video, I actually talk with one of my students, Benjamin, and we go over a lot of concepts in a video regarding a lot of kind of beginner to intermediate level JavaScript concepts. So if you're learning JavaScript or you just want to kind of hear me explain some of these concepts in a bit more detail, I highly recommend this video. It's great just to kind of give you an idea of a lot of the concepts and also let you see what we do here at Better Coding Academy on a day-to-day basis. Hope you guys enjoy this video and I'll see you in the next one. Start here. All right, so in this case, maybe we can just kind of go over, like where we were up to yesterday. We can just continue and just, see how everything's going, just to kind of fact check.
So I did some extra stuff today as well. Well, not too much, but I did get that working, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so that's all good now. But it's just with the what's it called? So I have to incur an artificial 250 millisecond delay, right?
Yes,
so,
that's right.
Your latency.
Yep. Okay.
That's the part where I'm like.
Is that the only part you have left?
Oh, and the URL shortener logger. So that must run. No. There was another. I think I'm missing.
Can we have a look at your code and we'll go from there? Okay.
This one.
Yeah.
I think.
Right. Okay. Yeah. You need to do that. So, all right. So you've got shortening URL. So you've got the URL shortener logger, like the shorten method. You've done that already, and that's all working fine. Okay. All right. Can I see your init.js? So I'm seeing how you're running your code. Okay. Yeah. That's fine. Can you go to URL shortener.js? Let's just start from there. So that's where we kind of left off yesterday. Okay. So we get the existing URL, right? And if it is there, then we return it and we return the shortened URL. Otherwise, we do database model.store URL.
Because
Okay. So you want to store it. That's right. But a couple problems with this approach here. I think the main thing that kind of concerns me here is, well, firstly, this one should have an await before it. So database model here. So for database model, first thing, so with await here, I'm not sure if you 100% understand when to use await, because before you had return await array or something. So
something like that.
That's not going to break your code, right? But the whole purpose of await is you're meant to await a promise. Okay, so you wait for a promise to finish, you wait for a promise. You can think of it that way, right? So when you have static async, what this function basically does is, what it means is that regardless of what goes on inside of here, regardless of what it's trying to return, maybe shortened URL is a string, maybe it's an object, whatever it is, you're basically saying that we're going to return a promise. So we're going to wrap whatever output there is inside of a promise, okay?
Okay.
So that's basically what's happening here. And so now when you have this code here, you need to understand that this will return a promise, okay? Just think of it as a normal function that returns a promise. So in that case, I think your end is lagging a little bit here, so I'm just going to wait for that to clear up a little bit. I'm still on 6 seconds after 45.
Oh, no. God. Wait, so can I ask something?
Yeah, go on.
So basically, when a function has async before it, it always expects you to have a wait for the promise to finish, right?
Not necessarily, right? You don't necessarily have to use, if you have a function that has async, right, 99% of the time you add the async in order to use await, right? Otherwise, you have no reason to wrap it. Because if you can think of async as basically wrapping it in a promise, okay? But the only... Okay, so I've completely lost the connection now. But anyways, let's keep talking. So basically, the only reason that you would want to use async, right? The only reason you actually want to do that is because you want to use await inside of there.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And obviously, we're going to use await by creating an artificial delay. That's no problem, right? So we're going to use it. But you just need to understand that async returns a promise. So you only use await in order to turn a promise, in order to wait for a promise to finish and get the actual value. So basically turn a promise into a non-promise, return the actual value of the promise, right? So So then when you do, like, for example, return await array, like, the reason that makes no sense is because array is not a promise. It's an array, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing is, the reason it doesn't break is because await is very lenient on these kinds of things. So it's not going to break your code, but it's just like unnecessary. You know what I mean? So just to point that out. So anyways, you've got static async store URL here. So whenever you have an async function, like you generally like in most circumstances you want to use await, especially if you're returning the value from it, right? Because in this case you're returning the promise, but your code here actually, the reason your code actually works is because if you go into URL shortener logger, and I've lost the connection again, so I'll wait for that to reconnect. So the reason, okay, look, so the reason that your code here, like the reason this hasn't given you an error, okay? So because, like I told you, this is a promise. You're returning a promise, right?
Yeah,
so, however, like you're expecting a string because this is a string, right? So. So then, how's this working? Well, the actual way this code here is working is that you inside of URL shortener logger, you do await URL shortener dot shorten URL, right? So what actually happens is when you have two layers of promises here, so inside of an async function, if you return a promise straight away, what actually happens is await resolves both layers of the promise.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's actually pretty cool. Like think of it like a birthday gift, right? And around the gift you wrap two layers of wrapping paper, right? So then you just get rid of both layers at the same time.
Oh, so basically already awaits for it, technically.
Yeah. So it basically does, but it's not good. You know what I mean? Like it's not correct. Technically the correct way to do it. So so I would still suggest you use return await. Now the reason, so as I said, because you're gonna await outside or use .then or whatever, it's not gonna be a problem. But the reason that you use await is because it just makes it clear that database model.store URL is in fact an async method. So it's like kind of two ways, right? It's like when you use await, you're kind of saying, hey, look, this is an async method. Kind of like that. So so it's gonna wait. I've lost the connection again, so I'm just gonna. It's okay. It reconnects after like a while. So yeah, I would just say add await here.
Yeah, I'll add it. So then, I can get rid of the other one, right?
Wait, why do you have two? Oh, just one.
Oh, did you type as well?
Yeah, I think I typed it. So get rid of it.
Because I typed it.
Yeah. So what do you mean?
What I had here. What do you call it? Here, right?
No, you can't get rid of that. Because that's the thing, is that an async function, okay, always returns a promise, right? Like I made a video on this one as well. An async function always returns a promise. So go back to URL shortener and notice that shorten URL is an async function.
Right.
No, because shorten URL is an async function as well. So so what's meant to happen is like I said, think of it like the gift, right? You have a gift, it's been wrapped up, you want to take off the wrapping paper. But then here, because you're using async again, which you should, like it's not bad to use async, but because you're using async again, you need to it wraps it by using async, so you need to unwrap it, yeah?
Yep, got it.
Cool. So I mean, like that's mostly okay. The only thing I'm kind of concerned about here is your database model, the semantics of this. I would say that you shouldn't return shortened URL.
Really?
Yeah, I would say you shouldn't. Like, because, okay, so when you have a store URL method, generally, like with databases and all that, there are a couple things that you can return, okay? So one of them in like a traditional database, let's assume we had a store URL method, okay? Generally, it makes sense to return something like an ID. So maybe you'll return, like, for example, like, for example, you return, like for example, let's just say you inserted the ID 5, then you would return the number 5, right? So you return the ID, which in turn you can use to get the row, like that sort of thing. Does that make sense? The other thing that you could return, like potentially, is you return the whole row. So like you could return the whole object here, which could like kind of represent the whole row. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's something else you can do. And then the third thing you can do is return nothing at all. Right? But generally, I would say it doesn't make too much sense to return shortened URL here. And the reason I would say that is because you're passing it into the function anyways. So it's like, why would you just return it back out straight away? Like that, it seems like unnecessary effort here.
Oh.
Like, does that make sense?
Sort of.
Just like, why not just do that?
And return, or like...
Well, you don't have to return if you don't want to. right?
But yeah, because
Because then it just returns undefined, which is it's not necessarily a problem. But like for example, if you were to do this, what I'm saying is you can just do like get rid of the return here, right? And then just do await this and store this in a variable so you understand what it is, and also because you need to reuse it. So you have like so you do this and you do like shortened. If I can,
URL equals
yeah,
that.
shortened URL equals like that. And then you add it, and then you return obviously shortened URL. So this way you don't have to do like a kind of gymnastics hoop through store URL. You don't have to worry about it, right?
Right. Yep.
Does that make sense as to like why we're doing that?
Yeah, sort of.
What's your main I guess question here?
Oh, my question. Oh, like, we're not returning anything from the store URL.
That's true.
Like, I thought we had to return something from it.
You don't have to, because you need to understand that even if you want to return nothing, it still returns something. Like when we say nothing, we mean it returns undefined. So the function will always return something, right? So in this case, when we do the async function, what's actually happening is you're returning undefined, but we're wrapping undefined in a promise.
Okay.
So like the promise resolves to undefined, like shocker, right? But it still resolves. So that's what happens there.
Right.
Yeah, and and like because I'm just saying like there's no real reason here you'd need to like ideally you probably should, but I mean for like this project in this particular situation I just don't see a purpose to that, so I would suggest against it is what I'd say.
Yep.
Cool. So anything else here you kind of want to go over before we continue?
No, everything else is pretty good.
Okay. All right. So yeah, this method, see, it's a lot simpler now. So this logic, like I said, it's pretty simple. Like this is super simple. Like it checks if it exists. If it does, return it. If it doesn't, create it. Like it's very, it's 2 lines of comments, right? It's not like complicated algebra and algorithms and whatever. So this is very, very kind of straightforward. So this part here is also fine. This part's good. So when we have well, okay, so we have show shortened URL and you haven't done that yet, yeah? So what I would say for this one is it's important to, I guess, understand the distinction between... So because there are 3 classes here you need to kind of take into consideration, right? We've got URL shortener logger, we've got URL shortener, and we've also got database model. And this particular function, this particular method is a kind of combination of the efforts of all 3. Like, does that make sense? Because inside of URL shortener logger, like I said, this is only a logging class, right? So just like this method here, we're not meant to have any like logic specifically. We're just meant to call something inside of URL shortener. But the thing with calling something URL shortener is just like this method here, it also needs to rely upon the database. So then we also need to do the database call. So the most important part of this whole thing here is balancing the kind of relationship between these 3 classes and making sure that it's appropriate.
Yep. Yeah, so you don't want anything to be too powerful.
It's not necessarily too powerful. Yeah, so I would say you don't want anything to kind of go outside of its own, like, what's the term? Like its own kind of like sphere of responsibility, so to speak. So maybe you can start building that and we can kind of like go through that together. So inside of URL shortener logger, maybe you can have a look at the project and we can figure out what we need to show in the console and work backwards from there.
Show shortened URLs. Shortened.
Do you have the project open on this computer here? Like the website one? So we'll have a look at it together on this one here. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So yeah, show shortened URLs. Can you scroll down a bit more? All right. So HTTP. Okay. So now it's shortened to that and shortened. Okay. So it seems like it just it's just those last 2 lines there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the URL is now shortened to the shortened URL. So you just need to show those 2. Okay. So then let's begin. Let's see how you do that. Let's put it together.
Shortened URLs. We'll pass it the URL first.
Why would you pass it the URL here though? Like, what's your reason?
Well, it needs to show which URLs.
All right. So 2 things. Look at the code on line 9. Does it have anything inside the brackets, the round brackets?
Nope.
Wow.
It then doesn't take anything as an argument.
Exactly. Plus, it also wouldn't make any sense to pass a single URL into show shortened URLs. Okay? Because like when you pass like say like what you did there, show shortened URLs for a URL. When you do that, it kind of it almost says like show the shortened URLs related to a particular URL, which also doesn't really make that much sense. So just like make sure that it makes sense. Yeah. So in this case, my connection has DC'd again, so maybe we'll just wait for that to. It's back. Okay. So now let's begin. Maybe it's a good idea actually to start from database model. So like maybe figure out what the database model should do and work backwards here. So maybe have a method inside of here. What would you suggest we call this method?
Get shortened URLs, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess you could. I would probably say like the reason what I would say is I'd call it get all URLs, and the reason I'd say get all URLs is because this one here, look, okay, so neither of these methods, so like both these methods have like an object. So like if you kind of use like objective, this one here, the object is the URL, right? Like we're storing the URL. This one here, we're getting the existing URL. So it seems to me like the URL is the object. So then if you have a method that gets all the records, all the rows, it seems most appropriate to call it get all URLs, yeah?
Right.
So maybe you can just call it that. And I would, yeah, I'd put it there. That's right. And I'd also put store URL down the bottom as well.
Below, yeah.
Alphabetical order, I'm telling you.
Yeah. Get all URLs.
Yeah. And think about whether it should take an argument or not. Like what parameters it should take.
And where it should be used.
Yeah, or if it needs any parameters at all, like just don't write any code yet. Just kind of talk me through it. Why do you think it needs parameters? Or do you think it needs parameters at all?
Yeah, it needs parameters for sure.
For what?
Because we're getting like it needs to be passed or like an object or like URLs to be able to use these URLs, right?
But does it really need to? Because remember, we're getting all URLs, so we already have our fetch criteria. So our criteria is everything, right? So I'm not completely convinced that you need to do that.
Right.
What do you think?
I still think that we need to pass it like something.
Okay, so obviously you're only gonna pass it something if you know what you need to pass it, right? So kind of like tell me right now, what do you think we need to pass it?
Well, need to pass it like an object or something that contains all URLs. I don't know, but then there's no point for that function.
No, but like explain to me why we need to pass it an object or whatever with all the URLs. Like why would we need to do that?
To filter out all the URLs. So we can pass it the object stored here. Something, the array.
Yeah,
actually.
okay, yeah. So we pass it the array, and then what?
And then we can filter out or like the URLs.
Yeah, but my question to you is why are we filtering out? What are we trying to filter?
We're trying to filter out the different URLs.
But isn't that the point of the array? So if you already have the array contains all the different URLs. So why are you trying to filter it?
Then we can just get it from the array.
Well, yeah. So like that's what I'm asking you. Like, why do you think you need a parameter? I'm not convinced that you do.
Then we don't.
Yeah, exactly. Because I don't see why you need one. Okay. Do you know where the URLs are stored?
The URLs.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
No. When I say the URLs, I mean the rows, the objects, like the whole. Because you need the whole thing. You can't just return the strings. If you just return this, then how do you get that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you return the whole thing, right? So
yeah.
So then where are these objects stored?
In the array.
Okay. So now how do you return the array?
How do you return the array?
It's almost a stupid question because it's really simple, right? Like how do you return the array?
You call the function, right?
Call what function?
Well, this one basically finds the URL, but then
No, that finds one element in the
One-
array, right? Yeah,
yeah.
that doesn't give you the whole array.
Mm. We can use this one, store URL,
No.
because
Why are you using another function right now? What I'm trying to say is you need to write get all URLs. Like we both unanimously decided, okay? We decided together that we need to have a method called get all URLs.
yeah,
Okay? So what does this method do?
get all URLs.
How does it do that? You've lost connection a bit, so I'm just gonna.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But how do you get all the URLs?
Well, you have to somehow get the array.
Yeah, but how do you get the array? Like, why is this a hard question?
Oh, the array's at the top.
Literally right there, right? Because it's in the
Yeah.
same file. We're using a
Yeah,
fake
yeah.
database. So what do you do?
Well, you can just call it straight away.
Okay, go on.
Well, get all URLs. We should loop through it, I think,
Why?
to get each object
Yeah, but why?
for each to get all the URLs.
Yeah, but aren't they already stored in the array? Why do you need to loop through it?
Okay.
Are you modifying them?
Later on, but probably not here.
Yeah, then why would you need to loop through them?
So we can just return array.
Well, there you go.
Yep.
That makes sense to me. Right? It's not that hard.
Yeah.
I don't know why you were thinking of using store URL. It makes no sense. Like you're trying to
No, it's
get the
I was
URLs.
I was going like a few steps down.
Yeah, it's
Just
so
get-
simple. It's so simple. You just need to get the URLs, right? Most of the time, I'm just asking you to figure out what you should do. Okay, like if you want to get an array, how do you get the array? You just return it. You don't need to loop through it. You don't need to use .for each, .map, .whatever. You don't need to. Like, why do you need to use .find if you want to use the array? You already have the array, right? So you just return it like that. Now what? What's the next step? Like what should we do next?
Now we can go back here, right?
You've lost connection again for a bit, so
Oh, well, now we can go back to the URL shortener logger and import that function.
import what function?
The get all URLs.
Okay, but if you do that, then you're mistakenly calling database model from URL shorten logger. Remember, URL shorten logger, the whole point is it's only for logging, right? It shouldn't know about a database model. It shouldn't care about the database model. That's why we have the URL shortener class in the middle, right? So you're meant to use URL shortener. That's the whole point of having it in the middle. Because you notice, why do we have URL shortener.shorten URL? The whole reason that we have that is because we don't want to put all of this logic directly inside of URL shortener logger. Because if we do so, it defeats the purpose, right? We lose the semantics and we also lose the flexibility. So in the same way, how do you what do you do in URL shortener here?
Or you can create a new function, right?
Yeah, you'd have to create a new method.
Yeah.
But so then like just maybe go off of that. So create a new method.
Should I call it? Fetch all URLs.
Yeah, you can just call it the same thing. I mean, it's not necessarily that bad.
Okay.
Because you need to understand that there's more context to a name than just the name. There's also the place where you put the method, right? Like you put it inside here, then it's going to have specific meaning, right? Like for example, something inside of database model has meaning associated with the database model, but here it has meaning associated with the URL shortener. So now, what do you think this method should do?
Well, it should wait for this, like get this basically.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Sounds good. Makes sense to me.
Store fetched URLs. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You can just do that for now.
Okay. Well, we can just wait for it because
That's right.
promise, yeah.
Okay. And now what?
So we fetched it. Well, we can just return it.
Exactly. Well, I think that's really good
Or we can
because.
just do one line.
Sorry?
Like,
Yeah,
we
you
can
can just
do
do
it.
it in one line. So that's what I was saying. Like, I don't really care we called the variable because I was going to get rid of it.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, right? Like, this might seem like a very kind of pointless function, but pointless method here. But you need to understand that the way we currently do it in the database model is incredibly simple. Our database model simply uses a JavaScript object. Now, in most cases, you won't have that luxury. Your database model might end up, like wrapping it. If you like use like something like Sequelize, right, or like something, you might have a different kind of object. So then you might have something different inside of URL shortener. But for the time being, something like this is very important because then you don't connect these two together, right? Because if you connect these two together, you kind of have it short circuit. So it's just important to have this method here in general, okay?
Okay.
So now that you have this, now what's the next step?
Now we can use it in URL shortener logger.
All right, go on. So now notice that by having URL shortener, that method in the middle, you also don't have to import database model inside of URL shortener logger.
That's right.
So the important part of that is you need to understand that what this means is that URL shortener logger has no idea of whether a database is involved. It doesn't know how the database works. It doesn't care. Okay, that's really important because that's called encapsulation, right? You're separating functionality. Incredibly important here. So go on.
Well, its job is just a console log, basically.
Yeah, sure.
What was it? So we can basically use that. Yeah, so we'd have to await as well. Wait for URL shortener.
I'd say be careful here because URL shortener. So first thing you forgot async. Second thing, your URL shortener method returns. What does it return?
My returns an array.
Okay, so if it returns an array, usually not a good idea to directly console log like that. Especially because in this particular instance, you actually you want to console log once per element in the array, if I'm correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you probably don't want to do that. I'd say get rid of console log. You actually don't need a variable. I think you don't actually need one. So no, keep the bit in the middle. Just get rid of console.log, literally. Yeah, so just get rid of that part. And so then what I do is dot, what was it called? Get all URLs? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So now do that and then go outside. Cool. Notice you put round brackets around await, yeah?
Yes.
That's important because then that says, hey, I'm going to await this and then I'm going to run the methods on the resolved value of it, right? Because if you don't do that, then it's going to it's going to await this and then do run the functions, run the methods on the promise, but then it won't be able to find it. So wrapping it is important in parentheses here is important, yeah? So we're going to do that and now what? Now, first tell me, what do we have here? What is this value equal to?
It contains an array of all
Okay, so it's an array.
Yes.
What do you do now?
We loop through the array.
Okay, do it.
Can we assign this to
No
a
for
variable?
loops. No for loops. I told you, never ever use for loops as your kind of go-to, okay? For loops should really only be your last resort in these situations.
Map.
No, don't use .map either. Why would you use .map? Okay, tell me when you should use .map.
You should use map for each when you want to go through each element, and then well, I'm not right, obviously now.
Yeah, but just go on anyways. I want to hear and I'll correct you.
Okay, fine. Well, my understanding was for map, right? You do something for each element in the array.
Yeah.
And then it returns a copy of that array for basically.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. What .map does, you're 100% correct. But using it here is wrong, okay? Because .map returns that new array. We don't need a new array.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Right? So what do we use instead?
Filter is fine.
Nope. Filter is also not fine because filter also returns a new array. Filter does a check on every single one of them. We also don't need to check. Right? Go to your browser. New tab, type in array.prototype.
Laptop, yeah, you want my laptop.
Yeah, we'll just do that so we can see.
Array MDN.
Yeah, array.prototype MDN, and we'll just have a look at all the methods on array. Yeah, so let's go there.
Find.
Nope. What does find do?
Finds the first element.
Yeah, but do we need to do that?
No. We want to return. We want each object basically inside for each.
Maybe search it up. How to loop through array JavaScript.
Well, there's so many ways.
Yeah, but how to loop through an array? There's a big difference because there's looping through an array and then there's looping through an array and doing a whole bunch of different stuff to the array, right? So like there are many ways you can do it. However, the most simple way is just looping through it. But there is a way to loop through it using one of these methods without using anything else. So what I'm saying is search it up on the internet. Just search up loop through array JavaScript, right? Because we can go through these and we can have a look, and in this case for each is correct, but what I'm saying is just always yeah, okay, so let's just say the first one. And let's see what we get.
No.
Sequential for loop, as I said, two verbose and imperative, so it's unnecessary. This one's the one I prefer. So array prototype for each. Now go down. So you got pros and cons, right? So the pros, you got very short and succinct, declarative, which is really good, right? The con is that you can't use break or continue. You technically can use continue, but besides the point. You can't use break, so you can't stop it from running, which is okay, right? Like in our case, because we don't need to do that. Yeah? But you see, we shouldn't use .map. Like, well, actually, no, this is the other way around. Yeah, so .map isn't the right one. And there should be a third option, actually, I think. For of.
And no for loops, yeah.
Basically, they're kind of the same thing, but if you're targeting, okay, so that's right. Do not use for in, yeah. So don't use for in. For in is different. So let's write that then. Let's use for each, and let's go from there. So it's just important to always remember to consult the internet's. Always roll that way. I'm stuck on 9:15:15. So
9:15. It's 31 now.
Yeah, so I'm 16 seconds behind. Just give it a second to reconnect, I guess.
Okay. Yep. For each. Yep.
All right, cool. You can
I can continue typing.
Yeah, I think so. Go on.
Let me just have a look at the box. So it takes kind of that. Yes.
All right, so for each URL and now what? Well, URL is a bad name choice here. Do you remember why we talked about this? Because we went through that. This is an array, right?
Yeah.
Okay. It's an array of what?
It's an array of.
Like, what's the type? What's the type of the thing inside of there?
Objects.
Objects. URL. Okay, so URL object, right? URL to me is a string. Okay, so kind of, it's a bad name. So now what do you do?
Well, now you can console log now, basically.
You can console log.
You have access to all the URL objects.
You do, you're correct. So why don't we do that? And how about we use backticks here? Because you don't really have backticks here, but backticks are nicer. Do you know how to use backtick syntax?
Sort of. Let me just have a look. I think it's, backtick JavaScript.
Yeah, example or something. Yeah. Yeah, first one's fine, probably. There you go.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Right. Let me just see what I need to type. Yeah. So the URL. Okay.
So remember that URL OBJ contains two properties. So you can obviously reference your database model to figure that out. You're not using backticks once again. So the kind of point of the backtick is the start of your string, okay? At the very start of console log, you put a backtick, and at the very end, you put a backtick. And if you need any variables, you escape them, sort of, right? So so what you do is like you put a backtick here. Oh, yours is lagging, so I don't know if I...
Yeah.
Okay, and then you do this. Okay?
Okay.
And I can't see where my cursor is. but after URL, after the L ends,
Yeah, I'll type. I'll
yeah,
type.
you do it. Go ahead. So yeah, like that, and then so on. Okay, so continue it. Don't use plus signs. Just keep going inside the backticks.
Oh, inside the backtick.
Yeah, so the
Oh.
backticks are like double quotes, right? But they're super
Right.
powered. So
Okay. Oh, wow.
yeah.
Okay. So that's yeah. That's
So
good.
keep going.
All right. So inside, yeah, inside.
Yep, that's right. There you go. And you can also use await inside of here. So it will wait for it to finish before kind of generating the string, so to speak. But in this case we don't need to do that, so that's not a problem. But yeah,
Finish.
that's all you have to do. I think you might need a full stop. I'm not sure.
Wait, let me just check what the. Yeah, shortened URL.
Yeah.
That's right. No, I don't need a full stop.
All right, cool. Save it then. See if that
That's-
works. Well, why didn't it add a semicolon?
Yeah, why
I think,
didn't it add the
I think something might be.
semicolon?
Oh yeah, told you. See if you can figure it out. Okay, so the reason it didn't add a semicolon is because your code's broken, by the way. So
Yeah, shortened URL. Shortened. Oh, yeah. Oh. Yeah, no, yeah.
try again.
There we go.
There you go. Yeah, that seems pretty good.
That's good.
Now we just need to introduce an artificial delay, right?
Yes.
So search it up. Why are you asking me?
Sorry.
Yeah, that's right. You should be sorry. Search it up.
Very-
Yeah, search it up.
Wait, I'll do it on this laptop.
Yeah,
so you
yeah,
can see.
go on. How would you say? What would you say?
I saw something about set timeout and then await.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, what would you search?
Artificial delay async await.
Yeah,
something like
perfect. That's perfect. Yeah, search that up. I actually don't know if this will work, but you can try it. Yeah, it should be fine. Maybe always write JavaScript. That's right. So
Yeah.
um,
Because they got this from what? Would you say it was C? Was it something C sharp?
C sharp. Yes.
C sharp. Yeah.
C sharp's actually a surprisingly well designed language. The first one's pretty good. Yeah, the reason I can tell the first one's pretty good is because in the sorry, can I just go back for a second? So in this one here, notice how it says the async await feature lets the always read this. This kind of tells you, even if the title sometimes is off, don't just gloss over it. Always read the kind of smaller text. It usually tells you. So go in. Let's have a look. Okay, so now go down. So scroll down, find the answer, whatever.
Okay. Here's a kind of best practice.
Not sure if the code. Wow, the code works. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
Ah, okay. Right. So in your project, you said all methods in the database model must incur an artificial. So the method, okay. Let's just see it.
Yeah, so basically, each method should run the sleep function,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something like that. Yeah.
Alright. So it's. Can we call it sleep? Or...
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, if they call it sleep, you can probably call it sleep.
Okay.
Because you're not contextualizing it, you're just kind of putting it in as like a almost global function, so it's okay. No, why put it there? Just put it globally. You don't have to put it inside database model, right? Because technically, it has nothing to do with your database model. Even though you're only putting it in this file because you're only using it here, it technically has nothing to do with it, right? So if you were to move it out in the future, it'll be very simple. But if you put it inside your database model and made it a static function, static method, then what you'd have to do is when you want to move it out, use it somewhere else in the future, you'd have to rename all the references to your methods, right? Because you're doing database model.sleep.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Your screen's lagging again, so I can't see what's going on. I'm just waiting for that.
I'm just creating the sleep function.
Okay. Do you understand how the sleep function works?
Returns a new promise
It does.
and it waits for and you set a timeout
Okay, that's
for
true.
it to resolve.
And what does that mean? Like, how does that work?
So you wait however long the set timeout thing.
Okay. So what happens after ms? So ms meaning milliseconds. After that many milliseconds, what happens?
The promise is resolved, right?
Okay, so then it runs the resolve function. Yes?
The resolve function. What do you mean?
Resolve is a function. Like, that's what's happening here. So set timeout, basically, set timeout, the first argument is a function. And the second argument is the number of milliseconds, right?
Oh, okay.
So after this many milliseconds, this function is run. So this is a function. So the whole concept of a promise is when the resolve function is run, then the promise is resolved, and the promise, you get the value back, right? That's the whole idea. So if you never run resolve, the promise goes on forever.
Oh,
Okay?
I see.
So when we do async functions, it's kind of different because in async, it kind of resolves when the function returns. So that's kind of different. But in a typical promise, what happens is when you run the resolve function, it resolves, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what happens here. And so we basically do set timeout on that, and we after a number of milliseconds, so it kind of sleeps. So when we do await sleep 2000, this is returns a promise, right? Because we're returning a promise here. It's not because it's async, but because we're returning a promise. And after that many milliseconds, the promise resolves, and then we can continue on with our merry lives. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So use it as appropriately.
Well, so I can copy this basically.
Oh, you haven't copied it yet? Yeah, of course you can. I mean, yeah, just use that.
Yeah, because that's what the method does.
Yeah. Yeah, so this one's fine. No, this is fine. I mean, you just forgot to use ms. You just need to include ms in here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So and you can do it in one line if you want to.
Fine.
Good. Yeah, that makes more sense because you don't have to do anything else here.
Yeah.
So okay, so now just use it inside all three methods, and you're good to go. $250 milliseconds delay.
Oh, that's right.
All right. Now that will do nothing.
Oh, because you have to await.
Yeah, exactly. So if you don't put await, then it'll just run, but it won't it won't care about it. It'll just let it run and do its thing.
Yeah, promise. That's right.
Yeah.
Pet promise.
Yeah, exactly.
You just copy that before we.
Cool. Now save it. Go to your code. Run it again. Yay! Real delay.
Whoa.
Cool, right?
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, there you go. You're done.
Ah,
Awesome.
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. What's your feeling like after going through the whole project, struggling a whole bunch? Do you feel like, I mean, honestly, do you feel like this is easier than you expected it to be?
Now that I've done it, yes.
Yeah, right? Because
Because
the concepts
yeah.
are simple, man. Like, they're really not complicated concepts here. Because, obviously we do have projects where we have difficult algorithms and all that kind of stuff. The concepts here are really simple. Like, you just need to apply them properly. So, like, dude, this is going to be the same thing with every project in here, in real life, in businesses, whatever, right? It's like, it's always the same thing. It's like, are your methods named properly? Are your functions named properly? Are your variables named properly? Okay?
Yeah.
If you can answer yes to all three of those questions, you're basically 90% of the way there. And then your code works. You're 95% of the way there, right?
That's right.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, and are your files structured and named properly? That's it. That's really it. Okay?
Yeah.
Well, I hope that this has been helpful.
Yeah, it has, man.
And yeah, so this has been a video kind of breaking down together with Benjamin. We went over the URL shortener project. This has been Lucas with Better Coding Academy, and see you guys later.